Hi folks, welcome to the Financial Argument. The fact that 2023 marks the official beginning of the global food crisis is crystal clear. Within months, it will be the sole topic of conversation worldwide. Most importantly, 2023 marks a starting point. The food shortage plan aims to be fully implemented by 2030. There are various stages of what planners occasionally, without hesitation, refer to as resetting. One of these stages involves taking control of food and, consequently, designing societies and economies accordingly. Do not assume that anything can be implemented immediately in the short term, which is why abnormalizing conditions is necessary. What I present to you is a projection of how conditions can be abnormalized, and indeed, how they have been abnormalized. I will be discussing important information about the global food crisis, so you can become aware of how our future is being covertly surrounded from all sides. Please watch the video until the end. If you are still one of those who are asleep, this video will be an awakening for you to grasp the realities. Even if you believe you are sufficiently prepared, it might make you feel insufficient about your preparations. To be honest, I was also one of those who thought I was prepared enough. However, especially in the last few months, I have doubts about whether I am truly prepared. At the beginning of June, global food inflation had shown a decrease, with prices moving toward the levels seen in April 2021 according to the Food and Agriculture Organization's Food Price Index. While food price levels remained quite high worldwide, optimism began to emerge that prices would improve, and there was even a sense that we were starting to move away from the risk of a global food crisis. At this point, things began to take a darker turn, and it was decided that the plan needed to be accelerated. Because if an external hand didn't intervene and the market was left to its own devices, things might not deteriorate to their desired levels. Just a month later, in July, two significant supply shocks rocked the entire world and proved to those who were aware that the optimism that had emerged a month earlier was an illusion. First, Russia announced its withdrawal from the Black Sea Grain Initiative, which facilitated Ukraine's food exports. The second shock was India's ban on rice exports. What's even worse, following these two major supply shocks, dozens of countries began to announce export bans one after another. Wheat, pasta, vegetable oils, sugar, tomatoes, onions, potatoes, fruits, vegetables, rice groats, beef meat, cabbage, sorghum flour, millet flour, corn flour, cereal, salt, chicken meat, grain, processed fruits, milled grain products, red lentils, and beans are among the products subject to export bans in various countries. In addition to the banned exports listed in the long inventory, we also observe the imposition of additional export taxes. Russia has imposed taxes on the export of various products, including soya beans, sunflower oil, sunflower meal, wheat, barley, and corn. In addition, Argentina has also imposed taxes specifically on the export of soybean oil and soybean meal. These two supply shocks, considering their magnitudes, imply that the world will practically be unable to access the two most essential food items, rice and grains, from almost anywhere on the planet. Of course, I'm not saying that these products will disappear from the supermarket shelves starting today. Initially, you will encounter unbelievably high price tags on these products and all the products that use them as raw materials. We already know what awaits us in the course of this process that began with rising prices. Ships laden with grain departing from Ukraine's ports, often dubbed the world's grain storehouse, used to deliver these cargoes to all corners of the world. However, it should not be forgotten that they primarily fed African countries. One of the conditions for Russia to accept the Black Sea Grain Initiative was this initially. The shipping routes were supposed to primarily target African countries, as has always been the case. However, Russia cited one of the reasons for terminating the agreement as the shipments going to other countries stockpiling instead of the hunger-stricken African nations. What needs to be emphasized at this point is Africa. One of the objectives of the food crisis triggered by these two essential food items is the reduction of the population and almost depopulation of the African continent, which has been designated as a new playground. It will eventually affect all continents one by one, but the game was initiated in Africa. If your sinister plan involves a serious reduction in the world's population, then Africa poses a significant challenge for you. Contrary to popular belief, estimates regarding population growth and fertility suggest that the leadership in population growth will not be in Asia, but rather in Africa. The World Economic Forum also explicitly states this, and the graphs I shared are from their own official website, based on their research. So, these people who have already been starved, exploited of their resources, and forced to live in extremely difficult conditions for years will be compelled to create a wave of chaos that will leave no city unaffected worldwide. For this, all you need to do is to make access to the basic food items they already barely reach even more difficult and create internal unrest in every country by acquiring various groups. That's why you've been hearing more noises from Africa in recent months. As the noises from Africa increase, you must understand that things are really getting ugly. And you can blame the climate for everything that's happening. People are being persuaded of this, and they are already calling it climate migration. In addition to encroaching on natural resources, the fact that they can build new concept cities in these depopulated areas is another matter. They will also decide who will live there. As I mentioned before, it's as if they are trying to play God. Looking at the state of people, if hunger and unrest are increasing in your country, the only option is migration, and the first destination for these people will be the continent of Europe. However, European countries are already grappling with unprecedented food inflation. Take a look at France, for example, one of the countries that receives the most migrants from African nations. Applications to food banks in France have reached record levels. Food inflation is hitting people's wallets hard, and there is already enough internal turmoil. You wouldn't even want to think about the influx of millions of people into this country. There is plenty of evidence right before our eyes as to why the year 2023 marks the beginning of a global food crisis. One of the signs of the beginning I've mentioned so far is happening on continents thousands of miles away from us, which doesn't mean that the United States will be less affected. On the contrary, economic conditions in our country are deteriorating, and millions of American citizens are becoming increasingly desperate. Under normal circumstances, the question of what desperate individuals who typically lead a life free from any kind of crime might do to feed hungry family members comes to mind. In addition to all of this, our society has also experienced a significant collapse. It is very distressing to see the number of addicts almost turning into zombies on the streets increasing every day. Here are some statistics that illustrate how our citizens have become economically desperate. Almost everyone is drowning in debt. Credit card debt has exceeded $1 trillion, setting a new record for total household debt at $17 trillion. According to a recent study, 61% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, and this number is steadily increasing. In just the last 2 months, 670,000 full-time jobs were lost. Many negative factors like these are impoverishing people, and the increasing organized crime and store thefts have become a significant problem for retailers. Companies like Target, Home Depot, Lowe's, and Dollar Tree report experiencing out-of-stock shrinkage. Walmart has closed many of its stores. Faced with the surge in thefts, retailers have started taking additional measures against this. Giant Food Market, for instance, announced that it would completely remove Colgate, Advil, and Tide products from the shelves in response to the increasing thefts. Additionally, shoppers will need to present their receipts to an employee before exiting the store. A week ago, a group of 7 masked thieves stole approximately $10,000 worth of goods right in front of everyone at a Home Depot store in California. This is not the first, and it won't be the last incident. It has become so widespread and rampant that I don't know where it will end. Furthermore, Many truck drivers have expressed concerns about their security, and many of them are preparing to quit their jobs. All of this is happening alongside ongoing bad harvest news from farmers around the world. And we know that most farmers are dependent on the weather. Non-seasonal rains, floods, storms, droughts, and hurricanes that have strangely reached incredible proportions worldwide are triggering food shortages. I will discuss the peculiarities of these natural disasters in a separate video, just like the record-breaking forest fires that have occurred without mentioning any arsonist and have been attributed solely to the climate. While people are being impoverished and food shortages are deepening, they will undoubtedly come to you with solutions. A few months ago, the U.S. Department of Agriculture approved the sale of lab-grown chicken meat made from animal cells. Upside Foods and Good Meat companies have announced that they have received final approval from the U.S. Department of Agriculture to sell lab-grown meats. The statement from Good Meat indicated that this approval means that lab-grown chicken meat produced directly from animal cells can now be sold to American consumers. Now, it's up to convincing you to eat it. And these days, when food prices are skyrocketing, these products will be offered to you at a very low cost. In the next stage of the plan, when carbon footprint taxes are applied, only selected individuals will be able to eat real meat. All of this has actually been prepared with the development of all technological infrastructures. With a project launched in 2020, like the carbon footprint application developed by the international payment company MasterCard. This application was provided to all banks and financial institutions, and all banks will soon make it available to their customers. When you download the application, it detects the carbon emissions equivalent to your expenses. For example, it understands how much carbon you emit when you buy fuel or calculates it when you eat meat because it produces a lot of carbon. Currently, there are no sanctions for this, but the next step involves sanctions. This is because the United Nations is seeking broader powers in the fight against the climate crisis. For example, in China, if your social credit score is low, you cannot buy gasoline. You cannot use public transportation or even go to the movies. There are many sanctions and penalties. You may even be exposed as a bad citizen. Those who are friends with you will also see their scores drop. All international organizations today point out that this Chinese model is the best solution for solving global problems. This year, a new credit system has also emerged with a low-interest trillion-dollar credit pool created for it. However, you need to meet certain conditions to receive this loan. For example, if you are a farmer who raises livestock, you cannot get this loan. There are many conditions. Otherwise, they won't give you this money. Since the new monetary order will be built on this system, all banks have started to adapt to this system. There are hundreds of things to talk about, but seeing food trucks being protected by military convoys and armed guards stationed in front of supermarkets is not a utopia anymore. And worse, it's not in the distant future. The crazy price tags we see when we go to the supermarket have become familiar. Although I generally see the shelves as well stocked, most people are filling their shopping carts with unnecessary items. I can barely see anyone buying a few cans of food. If all these people knew what was going to happen to them, they wouldn't do this. Our ancestors worked really hard to leave us this wonderful country, but especially the new generation thinks life is all rosy. And unfortunately, we are the last generation with a chance to have physical gold and silver. We are the last generation with the right to own land. If they succeed, everything will be rented in the future, creating a cashless society without ownership. We need to be as prepared as possible, learn new skills, and raise our children. Whatever state you live in, or maybe even in a different country, please let us know about what's going on there. People will understand what's happening there through your comments. Most importantly, don't forget to share this video with your loved ones. In the very least, hitting the thumbs up button can activate the algorithm and help the video reach new people. Finally, I want to reiterate that the most important thing to know is that an engineered food crisis is one of the key components of the master plan, aimed at redesigning all of humanity. Most people will only realize the truth when they see empty store shelves. But the plan doesn't work that way directly. The plan is put into action ruthlessly step by step with all its instruments. First, prices are raised. Then certain products start to disappear from the shelves, and empty shelves become the new normal in some places. While all these things are happening, crises are created in supply and demand in the background. Disruptions are caused in production and distribution. It's easiest to blame or use climate and natural disasters as an excuse. Years ago, we were fewer in number as those who warned about what was approaching. Today, you come across videos talking about food shortages on many channels. While I respect everyone's efforts, I see that many provide scattered information about the food crisis. Unfortunately, this alienates people from the seriousness of the subject. You may feel lucky to have come across this global food crisis video, however, you reached it. If you stumbled upon it on a prepper channel, and they recommended you to watch it, I especially thank them for their contribution to raising awareness. God bless you all.